from Citizens Campaign for the Environment.
Good afternoon. We're actually wondering whether or not Larry Schwartz talked to the governor before he fired the commissioner. We're 24 hours into this, and frankly, I haven't heard whether or not the governor even knows. What we have been dealing with for far too long is Larry Schwartz attacking the environment, attacking the agency, and clearly he has come to the conclusion that clean water and clean air are not important. What he has done has shown a total disregard for the citizens of the state, our children, and their future. We look at this situation, we say, what's next? At this point, what's the message to poachers, polluters, and environmental criminals? New York is open for business, and nobody's watching. To have a Department of Environmental Conservation that can't do water quality monitoring, sampling, species permit review in a substantive way, to have a DEC that can't go after environmental criminals, what are they doing? What's the next step? Now, there is good news. The good news is Larry Schwartz will be gone soon. Well, what comes after that? What's the next governor going to do? Yesterday, the top environmental cop in the state was fired for telling the truth. Now, was what Larry Schwartz did illegal? I'm not a lawyer. Was it immoral? Was it unethical? Yeah. He has shown a significant, grave indifference to New York's environment and to New York's people. He will be remembered. And Governor Patterson will be remembered. More than anything, for this day, for what Larry Schwartz decided to do. And by the way, we are interested in finding out whether or not the governor actually knows the commissioner's been fired. Thank you.
With that, we'd like to open it up for questions from members of the press.
You know, and I was thinking about how almost 3 years ago, in one of the first public appearances that Governor Patterson made after he became governor was at a forum that you guys put on, and he was greeted with lots of cheers, and he said all these things and how pro-environment he was at the time. You know, 2 years later, what's happened?
Well, I guess the shine came off the relationship. I think you'd have to ask the governor exactly what happened, but I know from our perspective, we saw a continuing lack of interest in environmental protection, and we saw a pattern of decisions being made by the Patterson administration that have resulted in where we're at today with the firing of Pete Grannis.
I mean, this was a guy that you folks considered an environmental champion, right?
That's true. It's been a major disappointment, I think, for all of us to see how Governor Patterson's legacy has trended since ascending to that office. I don't know if anybody else has any other comments on that issue.
Well, when he was in the state senate, he was here many times standing alongside us on environmental issues, helping us to get the attention of the governor at the time. But since becoming governor, has decided that the most expedient way to cut the budget is through cuts to environmental spending, which we've seen disproportionately happen to cuts in the rest of the budget. While we've seen the Adirondack Park Agency and Department of Environmental Conservation lose 25 and 30% of their staff, we saw a budget that went up 7.5% from last year. So there are real policy decisions being made here about the environment, and none of them are good.
I suppose the argument they would make is, you know, what the governor's been saying for 2 years, the state is out of money. You have to cut something.
Yes,
That's
but
right.
when
Go to the microphone, please.
when pushed on the issue, we've had discussions with the budget people numerous times. And I had the pleasure of being in a meeting where we asked them, why is the environment and environmental protection being disproportionately targeted? And they're like, oh, that's not a reasonable question. Well, I got into it a little with them, and at the end, one of the budget bean counters said, look, the environment's just not a big priority for the administration. I said, I'm sorry, clean water is not a big priority for the administration. And his response was, yeah,
folks contacted any of the other legislators other than Bob Sweeney?
Yeah, there has been communications with several legislative offices. There's a press statement, very strong press statement from Bob Sweeney on the back table. I would encourage everybody to pick this up. Obviously, Assemblyman Sweeney's history with Pete Grannis goes back many years from their service together in the State Assembly. And Assemblyman Sweeney is the current chair of the Environmental Conservation Committee, obviously keeps a very close eye on these matters, and has a long interest in the operations and the success of the Department of Environmental Conservation. I believe that there is a discussion going on about potential hearings by the Assembly on the operations of the DEC that could be scheduled for as early as next month.
But, you know, as you said, these people are gonna be, he would have been gone in 2 months anyway. And we have a governor's race going on now. Do you feel that Andrew Cuomo and Carl Palladino and the other candidates have talked enough about the environment and laid out how they would do things?
First, it seems like candidate Palladino has talked too much. And as far as Attorney General Cuomo, we've heard some, what we hope are encouraging comments from him, but every time we do, it's couched with, you know, we're in economic trouble, we're in economic trouble. Okay, we got that part. We're waiting, hopefully, expecting that the next governor will recognize the importance of the Department of Environmental Conservation, the programs they oversee and administer, and frankly, will recognize the importance of providing clean water and clean air to the people of the state of New York.
Have any of you spoken with Pete Grannis today?
I had a very brief conversation with him this morning on the phone just to, again, express our dismay at his firing by the governor and Larry Schwartz.
Can you share, I guess, what he said, given what's going on?
Well, the Commissioner, I think, made several public comments last night in the media that I would refer you to. In the private conversation I had with him, he didn't really elaborate any further beyond those comments. He talked with many members of the media last night following and during the event at the New York Water and Environment Association. I would also like to point out, in reference to the earlier question, that Assemblyman Cahill has also made a very strong public statement about the firing of Pete Grannis, and we fully expect other legislative offices to be weighing in on this throughout the day and throughout next week as well. So Pete is and continues to be a very well-respected public servant, deservedly so, and I think you'll see a lot of outpouring of support for him and condemnation of the decision made by Governor Patterson and Larry Schwartz last night.
What's the current budget for DEC?
The current budget numbers I can get you the exact number after the press conference. I didn't come with those numbers in hand. I want to make sure I give you the exact and accurate information. Okay. Dave Gall, our policy director, I can put you in contact with him. We can get you the budget figures, current staffing figures, as well as the staffing trend over the past 10 to 20 years as well. So you can see how these cuts have affected the agency over the years. We can also provide copies of the memo, which was covered in the Albany Times Union story on Tuesday. Any other questions?
I seem to be the only question.
The only other thing I would just say, Karen, in response to your question is, this is a golden opportunity for the Cuomo and Palladino campaigns to notify the public about what their vision is for New York's environment, how it fits into their vision of New York State as a whole, and what they're going to do to repair what is obviously an agency in crisis at the Department of Environmental Conservation.
So I was just going to ask, if you don't get Grannis back, what would be the next thing you would want? Not to do as many layoffs in that department?
Well, if Governor Patterson does not reinstate Commissioner Grannis, I think what we would seek is that the next governor consider replacing Pete Grannis with Pete Grannis.
The governor's office says they will not reinstate him.
I'm shocked.
Well, it's nice that, was that the governor saying that?
Or
was
Larry.
That was his press secretary.
Excellent.
So we're still wondering if the governor knows.
Well, it's refreshing that here we are in double-digit hours since the announcement was made that we have our first statement from the governor's office.
I just wanted to add one more thing. There are some pretty key decisions coming up within this calendar year that the